welcome to this Best of Beyond coaching episode for the month of June. Today, we're revisiting some of the most impactful parts of the conversations we've had around coach development, support systems, and changing the landscape of sports. We kick off by exploring a growing concern in high school and youth athletics. Teams are shrinking, participation is dropping, and coach turnover is accelerating. What's behind it and what can be done? This first segment from the episode with Dr. Pete Van Mullem sets the stage by connecting coach retention to the overall health of the sport.
But I support to coaches. I think we can make a connection to the fact that youth sport experiences are going to be better if coaches are better, right? And if coaches are able to stay in their roles longer, they're most likely going to be better at those positions. I mean, that's not universal, but in general, coaches are going to get better, we hope, right, as they coach. And if they're supported along the way, they should definitely get better. And so we see, I think that kind of what leads to this a little bit is, you've seen some trends out there with participation. Large high schools, in states aren't fielding full teams. They're not even, some are playing JV schedules for like a softball team, or they have to cancel the rest of their basketball season because there aren't enough athletes. And that's really fascinating to me because more than ever, there's opportunities for kids to participate, and there's not numbers on these teams at the high school level, which means some different things are going on, right? They're self-selecting out at an earlier age, and that's a different maybe topic and issue. But I think part of it too is that there's turnover in coaches so quickly. One high school in Washington one team had 4 coaches in one season. That's pretty extreme, but it's just we're not keeping coaches. So that's kind of what drives my interest in this. And I think what is sort of centered around is the support part. So coaches, in my mind, need to learn how to build support systems. That coaches need to learn how to teach. If they're not great teachers, they get better teaching. And they also need to learn how to win. And that's not winning at all costs, but they need to understand what goes into it. And so I think those 3 things are really important. It doesn't really matter what level you're at. You need to have some of that background, you need to strive for those things, excuse me. And when a coach is hired, so I guess the work that I'm really looking at now, when a coach is hired, a lot of times they're just hired and they're really just given a set of keys to the gym or whatever, the field, and given hey, go do it, and good luck, and we hope it goes well. And I think what I would like to see, and what I'm trying to work on is we need to assess coaches when they come in. Are they ready? And so there are things out there that you can use to, assess a coach's readiness. And so I think there's national standards. There are a lot of organizations have different, standards and guidelines for coaches, but why can't we assess when a coach comes in? Let's say high school, an athletic administrator can say, okay, you're good at these things, or these are things you're ready to do. You're ready to coach. But you're missing a few things here, and then support them to get better at those things, those items, and then evaluate them that way along the way. There's just a wide range of how we evaluate coaches in high schools. I had a chance to speak to some superintendents. Washington State University has a superintendent program for certified for future superintendents, principals that want to be superintendents. And so I had a chance to speak to them and just kind of get their thoughts on this retention. And a lot of them said, yeah, it's really, we hand them the keys, or examples where, they get handed the keys and the coach just go coach. And our evaluation is just like maybe a staff evaluation at the end of the year kind of thing. And so I'm really looking at, can we help assess coaches when they come in, and then what can you do to support them as an administrator? And the idea behind this really is, at least I believe that if you invest in your coaches, it's going to be a lot harder to get rid of them. You're not going to cave maybe into the pressures quite as much. Ideally, I would like to see an administrator be able to say, hey, look, this person's doing everything they're supposed to be doing. We've invested all this into them to be a better coach, and they're doing it. You just don't like them. We're not getting rid of them, kind of thing. And I know that's what I hope we can get to, where administration can feel more comfortable, because I think if you invest in people, it's harder to get rid of them.
This next segment explores how coaches can build meaningful support systems, not just for their athletes, but for themselves. From everyday habits to intentional peer networks, the conversation highlights the importance of community in sustaining a coaching career. You also hear how the model at Snow Valley Basketball School creates powerful mentor relationships that last well beyond the camp.
Well, yeah, the takeaways. So like for coaches, I advocate that I think the coaches can be proactive in building those support systems. When I say support systems, so it's with your own athletes, right? And then it's also with your coaching staff, if you have a staff. It's also with your peers in coaching, maybe other teams, your coaches within your organization, if it's a athletic department. Um, then it's all those things. It's community, it's your bosses, your administrators, it's your so really all those things. I think there's things that coaches can do. Some are just common communication strategies, right? Or just being responsive would be one simple example would be like just being responsive to individuals that you're working with, right? If another coach contacts you, you respond to them, right? And so just building this respect and responsibility that way, I think that's a simple one. But the athlete part is really where there's been a lot of research on coach athlete relationships and the power of that. And I'm sure a lot of people talk to that, and there's a lot of information out there. And mostly, if you talk to athletes who have good experience with coaches, they have some sort of connection, right, with their
Mhm.
coach. And so I throw that under that category. Like you're building a support system, you need to connect with your athletes in the way that matches who you are, being authentic, and so there's a variety of strategies to do that. But I mean, it's simply getting to know them. I mean, that's the easy way. What are they interested in? What do they like to do? Why are they there? I always like to say, why are they there? Um, I teach a lot of students. I'm not in coaching, but I'm in teaching, and I err on this sometimes. Late in the semester, or maybe this next semester, I'll see the student or something, and they'll tell me something. I'm like, I should have known that before. I should have known. I should have known a little more um, about this student earlier. Like, why are they doing this degree? In my case, but why are they playing this sport? I think we just think that they're all going for the same thing, right? But they're not.
Mhm.
Uh, so that's just one simple thing. I mean, there's a lot of other things too.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody yesterday, and I think this goes to kind of the relationships of coaches to coach. But it was actually an administrator from another school having the exact same issues that we have. And I look at them, I'm like, man, they're doing it well. And under the hood, it's messy. And I found here getting coaches, I think we're there now. It took a while to get there of coaches being transparent with each other of, yeah, I'm struggling, or here's what I'm struggling with. Is that a foundation for support systems when you're looking coach to coach?
In terms of looking for that support, it's how you're talking about in terms of like
Yeah.
mental kind of. Yeah, I do think that there's a really good example. I've had a chance to go and experience this, and then I wrote about it. And there's a basketball camp it's now currently in Iowa called Snow Valley Iowa Basketball School. And it's a traditional old school basketball camp. When I say old school, it's kids come from all over. They're not with their teams. They might come with kids from their teams, but they're not coming with a coach. They're coming as individuals. And then coaches come and teach, and they come as individuals. They don't bring their teams. Again, they might bring a few kids from their high school or something, but they come from all over. And so you have this melting pot of coaches and athletes. And it's a support system. And why it's a support system for the coaches is that the way that camps run is that younger coaches are often paired with older coaches, or more experienced coaches with less experienced coaches, is a better way to say it. And they do what they call clinics. And so they'll have the experienced coach lead a clinic, the other coaches will watch, and then those other coaches act like assistant coaches, will assist the athletes and that person running the clinic and teaching that particular skill for that day. And then they'll actually talk about it afterward, and they'll get some feedback on their teaching. And they'll ask, they can talk about how it went, and then they'll flip it at some point. If the younger, less experienced person is ready, they'll flip it and let them lead a session, and then of course in front of more experienced coaches, they will then will get feedback from those coaches, and so that builds a support system because one, they're going through this experience together. It's no different than working with a group of coaches over a period of time. You're going to develop that support. But what reason I bring this example up is that some of the individuals involved have that experience. They go back and they coach their team, whether it's in California, another one's in New York, another one's in Iowa or whatever. And they would have, like, the one guy told me, yeah, I had a rough season, and I didn't know. And he just reached out to his Snow Valley friends, and that's what he did. and because he had such good connections with them. So that's just one example. Can you find support systems? Can you develop those through? Do you have a Snow Valley place you can go? Do you have there's different ways to do that for different sports. But I think that peer-to-peer support is so important in coaching, as those who have coached really know.
Yeah, that makes sense. Our next two clips come from a podcast short Dustin and I did on standards. Coaches talk about non-negotiable, but what happens when real-life decisions challenge those standards? This segment features us telling stories that show the tension between holding the line and doing what's best for the group, and how honesty and empathy can factor into both.
Just like we're going to have our standards and stick to them until that standard's the third leading scorer in the country and never wins a line drill. And I would say this, when you ask that question, I think it makes me immediately think of what are the non-negotiables, what things am I willing to, die on what hill for? And then you talk sometimes about gray area and what does that look like? So for instance, I remember a player that I had that was the third leading scorer in the country and literally on a given night was good for 30 and 5. Moved pretty slow at practice sometimes. Didn't ever win a line drill. But he had the team as far as relationships. And so when we talk about sacrifice a win for standards, I think there's so much that goes into that. If we're talking about a lifestyle violation, I mean, the standard, I think, is the standard. But to your point, there were some times that I sat that kid and it was like my whole team was like, Coach, put him in. And so that's a tough one. I will tell you this story. My second year of coaching, we had some guys late for the bus one time and at Van. And I mean, I gave this big speech and you're 10 seconds late. We're leaving you. We're not going to tolerate that. And of course, some of the guys who were late they were not impact players, if I'm just being honest. Our next road game, I'm out in the van. There's about 3 minutes left and our best player is not in the van. And I looked at our assistant coach. Yeah, that's exactly what I did. So I go to the office and I'm texting our assistant coach like every 30 seconds. Hey, is he in the van yet? Hey, and turns out this player was 2 minutes late. And I got in the van and said, hey guys, I'm sorry. I forgot the whiteboard or whatever, because that guy, the point I was trying to make was not for that player. Now you can hear that and say, hey, you're soft or I think the reality is time and place. That was the best decision. And so it goes back to, is fair mean being the same to every guy, every player? I don't think it does.
Yeah, that's one of the places my mind goes is if you put a rule up there, you better follow it.
And I think that might be the take home here.
And it'll sound like I'm joking, but I'm not. Bobby Knight had a rule of he didn't have a lot of rules. So he had the freedom to keep his best player and keep off his worst player. Because I think coaches pin themselves in the corner.
Yeah.
And it can get hard.
Yeah.
And that's one place for administrators on the call. I think the institution or organization can pick their standards and then make policies so there's no wiggle room on it.
Yeah.
And then give coaches freedom within that.
Yeah.
So we say this, and this, we're not going to tolerate. If you do it, you're going to, like we have something at Friends where if you don't do study hall hours 2 weeks in a row,
yep,
you're not going to participate.
Yep.
And that's our way of saying, hey, school matters to us. We want you to be a graduate.
Yeah.
Coaches left to their own devices, which we had before, had such a wide range of policies that I just didn't feel comfortable with it. So I think there's that layer with. We close out this best of episode with one more snippet from Dustin and I's conversation, where we talk about the emotional weight of coaching discipline decisions and how the response to the team, not just the coach, signals whether you've built a culture of care or just enforced compliance.
And oh, by the way, I think it's important for the coach to say to the player, this really hurts. This really sucks. This is really tough. This is where we're at. I'm going to, and I miss that part. It's like, well, that's the standard, is what it is. Instead of saying, hey, there's not a part of me that wants to do this, but we said it. I don't, and just being honest about, I don't want to lose the group here. All right. Or the opposite way and saying, hey, I know this is where we're at. I feel like this is warranted a little different. I'm going to make this decision. I'm a big boy. Now's not the time and place. If you have questions, concern about that, hey, we've got an open door. Come get with me this week. Let's talk through it. That's a human thing.
And I think there's a layer for me, and I know for you, because we've talked about it, of part of my thought process now is how would I want somebody to treat my kid? If this was my kid in this situation or with this team, or even somebody on the team, but not the one violating the standard, how would I want that environment to be? And that can help guide some of my decision making too.
Yeah. Go to the care piece as we end. When you have a team, a group, organization that deeply cares for one another, or you've set up platforms to care for one another, when that does happen and there's a quote sacrifice of a player, the group feels that. And I think there's empathy for that person instead of yeah, you did it. I'm up. I think there's dude, we're with you. And that's different. There's community in that. That's, as you say, hard things, do hard things. Yep. The book, like sometimes the hard thing is that, and it's hard on everybody. But when the group responds that way, along with the coach and player, it matters. And so many layers to that when that decision is made.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to another episode of Beyond Coaching. Beyond Coaching is a podcast developed and produced by the Impactful Coaching Project with the support of Friends University. The Impactful Coaching Project seeks to develop coaches that coach the whole person and is the thought leader in coaching the 21st century athlete. The Impactful Coaching Project produces training, information, and research to help coaches improve. To see more information, go to impactfulcoachingproject.substack.com. Thank you.